Hello, everyone, and welcome to the next edition of Talking Europe, a series of discussions held in partnership with the European Commission that aim to foster a debate on the work that the European Union does for its citizens and their lives. Coinciding with the European elections, we've been having several discussions with members of the European Parliament, not only to discuss the achievements and milestones of the previous mandate, but also to take a look at the upcoming challenges following the results of the European elections. And today, we are very happy to be joined by Hannah Neumann, member of the European Parliament from Germany, representing the Greens EFA group. So Anna, welcome. Thank you very much for being with us. And I guess congratulations are in order for your re-election. This is really great news, so congratulations. And last time we met, it was in Berlin. It was in mid-April, so really full-on campaign mode, right? Around 2 months before the elections. And looking at the results now and the challenges ahead, what do you think, if we look at the results, are the key issues that somehow spoke to citizens in their choice and also their expectations for the future?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me and for continuing this discussion that allows us, but I think everyone, to better understand what the European Union is up to. I guess it's fair to say that we as the German Greens had hoped for a bit of a better results. But what we have seen across Europe is that those parties that are in governments, in whatever kinds of coalitions, they ended up rather weaker than last time. And those who were in opposition became much stronger. So, for example, the Greens in the Nordic countries, where at the moment we are in the opposition, they came back so strong.
Yeah.
So what we could clearly see is that in a situation of crisis that puts pressure basically on every European citizen, there is reduced agreement that those who are in government are doing a good job. Everybody just wants kind of change, and that translates into election results. When you ask me what was in people's mind during the campaign trail, so what is it that people raised, which I think gives us a clear indication of where the Union should work on the next 5 years. One issue was clearly the cost of living. Inflation, energy prices, housing, mobility. People have the impression that everything got more expensive over the last 5 years, and even more expensive than they would have pay rises. And well, I guess that's right. And that's something we need to look at, because we also see that some companies have huge benefits. And we need to balance these two things a bit more. Climate, on an abstract level, has been a huge topic. We have seen floods, we have seen droughts, we have seen forest fires. So people really feel now in their day-to-day life the effects of the climate crisis. But the moment protecting the climate actually means that, well, things get less comfortable, things get maybe more expensive. We are having serious discussions that at the moment, we need to continue to have them also with the farmers, but there are just no easy answers. And those who promise to have easy answers, they seem to be attractive to quite a number of people. But frankly said, just saying we shouldn't care about the climate is not going to make the droughts go away. Saying it's the refugees' fault that there is not enough housing is not going to build new houses. So I think, and that has to be a job for all the reasonable democratic political parties, and we will have to see who qualifies as that and who doesn't in the next 5 years. It is their job to really explain that, yes, we are working on solutions, but there are no easy solutions for complicated problems.
Absolutely, absolutely. This is the main takeaway, like need for solutions rather than talking, which is something that we've heard quite a bit. You've also said that this is a moment in which priorities are being shown and discussed. We are seeing big conversations about the recomposition of the European Parliament, the next top jobs, as they're called, and something that seems that will be very strong for the next European Parliament and the next Commission will be security and defense. And I wanted to ask you a bit about that, because you've been very active on that. You worked a lot on this in the previous mandate, and I presume, I believe that your voice will be very strong also in the next one. So focusing on that, on security and defense, and looking at the current challenges that are multiple, but also the upcoming ones, the future ones, expected ones, how do you think the EU, starting from member states, should enhance their cooperation in all these issues related to security and defense? Because it seems that higher levels of integration are needed, and also real cooperation when we need to deal with all these, as I said, threats, but also the systemic ones, starting from the war in Ukraine and others. What do you think?
The European Union for almost 80 years allowed us to reduce on military spending, to reduce on thinking about military. It's called a peace dividend in scientific language. So basically, because we managed to solve problems by sitting around one table and talking, rather than being ready for war and going to war and just destroying everything, we could lean back a bit on military in recent decades, which I think was a beautiful thing to do.
Fantastic.
And I would have preferred it to go on like that. Sadly, things have changed, and we now have Russia militarily inside Ukraine, attacking Ukraine, wanting to take over Ukraine. And most likely, and according to what Putin announced several times, they may not stop even if they are able to take Ukraine. So it is a key challenge. What he does is a key challenge to the security of every European citizen. And it's our job to stand with our allies in Ukraine. That's one challenge on the hard military front. And here we simply need to produce more military equipment to give it to Ukraine so it can defend itself, but also to fill the gaps that we have inside the European Union if ever Putin dares to attack one of the European member states. Either we stand together and we defend the Union, or the Union is gone, frankly said. And here, we just need to speed things up, and we don't have endless amounts of money. And I mean, the data is quite clear. If every member state takes care of its own defense, we are going to be in competition with each other. We're just going to make prices go up. If we do it together, there is enough studies from the European Parliament Research Service and many other agencies, we are going to save between 25 and 100 billion a year. And we just can't afford to waste these amounts of money at current time. Also, we just don't have enough critical raw materials. So we have to make a joint strategy of what do we use these critical raw materials first, what do we use it second. We don't have enough qualified labor for all of these things. We haven't built up all the factories, the production lines. So it doesn't make sense if 27 countries think about how they would do it best in their national setting if the goal is to define the European Union and support the Ukraine altogether. So we should make these decisions together, we should set the priorities together, and then we should see how we best place the production lines, where we best find the money, and how we do that together. In terms of how to get most security for our citizens, this would make sense. In terms of saving most money, this would make sense. In terms of how do we get there fastest, this is the way to go. And it is very frustrating to see that already all of the last 5 years, we had a lot of talk in the Council on we have to do it together, European Defence Union, whatsoever, and the talk got even bigger after the Russian invasion. But if I'm really saying, okay, let's move on. That's the plan, here's the strategy. What's the story? They are still going to say, it's national competence. No, we don't want to. And it is very difficult as a member of the European Parliament to work with that dichotomy of talking Europe and doing national. What am I supposed to do? Do I take them by their words, or do I take them by their deeds when I make the plan for what is best for Europe? And there is one thing we don't talk about enough. Putin attacks Ukraine militarily, and he is threatening to attack the European Union militarily. When it comes to cyber, he already attacks us. It is quite clear. You can't see it because it's not battle tanks, but basically in our cyber, we already have
It's
the
already
Russian battle
there.
tanks in the middle of the European Union, attacking critical infrastructure, attacking us with foreign information manipulation and disinformation, which sadly works quite well at the moment, with this whole espionage thing. So we're taking data out. And for this one, again, we are not prepared enough. And on this field, it makes even less sense to build up 27 times little cyber defense capabilities, which, frankly said, most small member states are not able to do. Even Germany at the moment isn't able to do. Okay. And we really don't have enough experts. So here, as we need to build all of this up at the moment, we should really do it as 27 from scratch and not fall back to these stupid mistakes, frankly said, we made in the traditional military field.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot. This is very interesting, and it echoes some of the really ongoing recommendations that the European movement has been doing, because as you said very clearly, it's often just a matter of furthering integration. It's just a matter of helping each other instead of spreading things out. This ongoing passion from fragmentation that, as you said, is quite stupid, or at least it doesn't work anymore.
By now, it's dangerous.
It doesn't work. It's so counterproductive. I completely agree with you. And you've mentioned, cyber war, interference. Also, I thought about disinformation, and it's very much linked to my next question, because you've clearly stated the dangers to Europe, to the European Union, that, as you said, is already at war. When we talk about when we talk about cyber war, but what do you think are the implications also for the strength and sustainability of our democracies? Because, in organization, we work a lot in, citizen participation, democratic integrity, democratic resilience. And when we see all these strong rhetorics that are, full-on authoritarian, anti-democratic, sponsored sometimes, but in general supported by, Russian interferences, we see really real danger to democracy. My question is, how can we counter that? What do you think should we be focusing on in this mandate in the next 5 years? Because we can say that for the previous one, the institutions have done a lot of work. It's been a very busy 5 years. We've discussed that already. It was a lot about legislation, but it seems that there are some gaps that need to be filled in, especially when it's about democracy, that we've been taken so much, we've taken it for granted, perhaps wrongly, because now the threats are real. So what do you think? This is really something that, in our work, we've been asking a lot to.
If you want to do proper politics that helps citizens and solves problems, it has to be based on a thorough assessment of what the problems are. And that usually, if you want to do good politics, it has to come from science. And at the moment, no, but truth is dying because of the way we communicate, and that is a huge problem. So if, for example, it has been a huge debate in Germany if basically the social service insurance, or when you work with minimum pay, where do you have more money in the end? And it's quite simple. You can do the math for single person, you can do the math for married couple, you can do the math for married couple with 2 children. And if you just do the math, you just calculate the figures, the amount of money that you have, even if you work with minimum wage, is severely more than what you would have with the social insurance package. And of course, we can debate if the margin is big enough, if the minimum wage is big enough, if certain other things around work, for example, how much do you pay for the tickets of the train to get there is too high or not, or whatsoever. So we can have a discussion, and then we can make political decisions. The problem is that fake news has been spread to a degree that when I go to a class of school children, more than half of them would insist on the fact that the social insurance package is higher than minimum wage. And when I tell them, okay, we go, let's look at the numbers, and I look with them at the numbers, and I tell them the figures, and I compare to them, they would still say, well, that's your numbers.
They don't believe you, yeah.
And then I'm like, how am I supposed to have a discussion about how do we get to a proper solution if we can't even agree on the facts anymore? And this becomes a systemic problem. And I still believe if the seriously democratic parties would continue to agree on facts and not themselves tweak the facts or just fall prey to disinformation campaigns themselves by replicating them because they've heard it somewhere. I'll give you an example in a minute. This is one thing that we have to do to counter disinformation, just to make very sure that we don't, either because it serves us or because we just didn't check probably become ourselves Trojan horses of disinformation. We had one discussion in Germany that I found quite painful because people always say, you need to regulate disinformation. And yes, we need to check if there is foreign interference and we need to counter narratives. We need to make sure that in our social media, everything that's just polarized or crazy or a simple lie gets clicked more often because people think, okay, that's weird, I'll have a look at it. And by that, the algorithm already kicks and becomes. So yes, we need to regulate social media better. Yes, we need to expose foreign interference manipulation. But I can't regulate anything anymore if, for example, the leader of an opposition party basically says these things. And we had this whole discussion about refugees coming from Ukraine, where I'm very proud that as the European Union, we said this is the war in our neighborhood. So this is where we need to take responsibility for these refugees and make sure that especially women that come with children, they get good housing, they get courses for language that the kids can go to school immediately. But of course, it's a burden. As it is a burden for Lebanon to take care of the Syrian refugees for more than 10 years now. So, I mean, everyone has these burdens. That is our burden. And now there was this discussion that the opposition leader, Friedrich Merz, in Germany said, basically, these Ukrainian refugees, they do social tourism. So they would just come to Germany, they would get all the social benefits, and then they would take the bus basically to go back to Ukraine, where apparently it's safe if they take the bus to go back home. And they just spend the money there and they misuse our system. It's a lie. And we even know that it was Russian, it was a dedicated Russian disinformation narrative that they used their Russian groups in to spread it through Telegram. That's how it got into other Telegram groups. And that's how it kept spreading. And okay, if it spreads in that bubble, so what? But then if he just, without doing a fact checking, says that on mainstream evening media, I can't regulate that anymore. And I think here we all have a responsibility not to make ourselves to Trojan horses of Russian foreign interference, only because it maybe suits our narrative. And this to me will be one of the challenges for the next 5 years, that each and every one of us who thinks we are Democrats makes sure that we do politics based on facts and we communicate based on facts, so we don't play their game.
Yeah, we really hope so. So the key takeaway here is really responsibility, I would say. Like, responsibility is just so crucial. Thanks a lot for this.
There are things much bigger than my party is going to win or lose.
Yeah.
And that's democracy.
I agree. And it's also, if I may, what voters expect from elected representatives. So I very much agree.
Sadly, maybe not all of them anymore. If I look at who votes for AfD, that is just known for lying.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, that's the challenge. I wanted to ask you two final questions very, very quickly. And one of them was related to a lot of work that you've done in this mandate about feminist foreign policy, feminism, gender equality, because it's obviously an important debate, but I also have the feeling that in this context of strong polarization, democratic backsliding, but also proper threats to gender rights, minorities, Our feeling is that we really need to step up the game and join forces, to come up with stronger legislation, better opportunities. So, based on your expertise and your experience, if we look at this mandate and the next 5 years, how do you see your work, but also the work on the institutions, for the creation of what I would define as a truly strong feminist Europe, and with opportunities and equality, including, of course, on minorities and other underrepresented groups?
It won't get easier.
Okay.
We still have the council.
Okay.
Even if everyone in parliament is very reasonable, we still have the council, and Hungary already made it very difficult the last 5 years to even use the word gender
Yeah.
in any kind of conclusions, which is how ridiculous. He didn't care about the content, it was
It's true.
just the word gender.
And by the
which
way,
is
I always say that it's not even in the treaties.
ridiculous we
The word
are.
gender, it's not. I agree with that.
So, first of all, I hope that Ursula von der Leyen, if she's confirmed as Commission President also by the European Parliament, doesn't roll back her ambition to have a gender equal commission.
Okay.
That would be a very bad sign, and I hope she's going to keep that up as announced. We will support her in that. And then we have to make sure that whatever we achieve with the women on board, with the equal pay, with the pay transparency, with all these directives that we managed to push through in the last 5 years, that it's not taken back. So we need to build kind of a firewall around that.
Okay.
And based on that, see what else we can achieve. My experience from the previous term has been one, there is a solidarity amongst women, often that goes across party lines on women's issues. And I hope we can use it to extend it basically to other minorities, so that we can extend it to the LGBTI issue, which may be difficult for some of the women that we had solidarity in women's issues, and that we can also extend it to the people of color who are having a tough time and who feel, and I understand why, severely threatened by some of the rhetoric that we hear from not just the far-right groups, but also from parts of the conservatives. And here I just hope that we will have a solidarity beyond party lines. We had this, I just remember this discussion when, after David Sassoli died, and there was the question, who's going to be the next Commission President? And I rather early on said, well, I think Roberta Metsola would be a good cast. And then people said, but Malta is such a small country. And I said, yeah, but the women are bigger than every member state.
There we go.
And there we went, right? So she made it, because there are also other loyalties. And she has been also on LGBTI and discrimination issues. When there was something in the plenary, she has been very clear.
Okay.
So this is also something, if you as a woman are given space and the privilege, I think you should use this space and the privilege to lift others up. And as long as we all understand that and remind ourselves, I still think we can make a difference in the 5 years to come. And what I also learned is sometimes where things are perceived as being ideological. You said feminist foreign policy. Oh, that is such an ideology thing. That's how it all started.
How dare I?
No, but that's what people told me. But you with your ideology. And I said, okay, listen, if it makes you feel better, we call it gender equality in EU's foreign security policy for the report. So we call it gender equality in EU's foreign and security policy. It doesn't hurt me. If it makes it easier for you to become part of the discussion,
Okay.
fine. And then I said, and now we look at numbers. How many women ambassadors in the year 2020. So it's now the year 2020. We have 25 years of women, peace and security agenda all around the world. So everyone committed to equal rights for women in foreign security policy. How many ambassadors, women ambassadors, do you think Belgium has? It was 11%. And the moment I said that, there's no more discussion about ideology. Everyone is just like, what the hell? And then people would say, but it's slowly getting better. And then I said, if we take slowly as it is now, it's going to take 250 years. Is that how long you want to wait? Is that my ideology?
Yeah.
And then we are having just matter-of-fact discussions. And it was quite interesting for me to see how little knowledge there was on the representation disbalances.
Okay.
But also some of my colleagues from Eastern European countries, for example, we don't need quotas. And then I told them what the numbers are, especially in South and West Europe. And they were flabbergasted. They couldn't believe it, that women are so badly off in these advanced countries. And that's when she said, okay, but if that's the reality, yes, I think we should have quotas. And that's how I got a report through that has 50% quota on all management levels in EAS with 80% backing in the parliament. So sometimes it also helps to, let's say, deconstruct this whole talk about ideology by just going back to the truth and the facts, and then it is very difficult to argue.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's such a great point.
That's how security was born.
Yeah. No, that's really a great point. And again, congratulations for that report. I think it was brilliant. Last question that we've been asking all the participants before concluding. We would like to, ask for your, let's say, your best wish for the upcoming 5 years. If you can think about one wish for the next 5 years, something that you would like to see, to do, that you would expect perhaps, because as you said, as you've clearly said, we are going through very challenging times, and we need to really be also hopeful, but also ambitious.
I would have two.
Perfect.
Three. Can I still have three?
Absolutely.
So the first one is Ursula von der Leyen said when she started on the Green Deal, it's her man on the moon moment. I would have preferred her to say woman on the moon, but well, we're working on that. I just hope we don't stop halfway.
Yeah.
Because we need to deliver on the Green Deal. We need to deliver on the Green Deal for the competitiveness of our industry, because the Gulf, China, US, they are moving in that direction, and we are just going to simply lose out and weaken our industry if we don't move at least the same speed. But also for our climate, and we have to add the social component so people are not being left out.
Absolutely.
That's quite clear. People need to be able to afford the changes, and there is enough money that big companies make. We need to find a way that they pay proper taxes in Europe, and then we can have the social component.
It's long overdue.
That's one. The second one is I want Ukraine to become a member of the European Union, because that would also mean that we got rid of the Russian aggression and that the people of Ukraine got what they so badly have been fighting for. And I want the European Union to stay, or even more become, a safe harbor for all people that fight for democracy and freedom around the world and that are severely threatened because they do so. I want them to be able to find a safe haven here, a refuge, where they can continue their work, so that they are able to go back home once there is more hope in their home countries. Absolutely. I think this is the role that we should play in a world that becomes more tense, more authoritarian, and more violent.
Yeah, absolutely. That was perhaps the best way possible to finish this conversation. So thank you very much. And again, best wishes for the next 5 years. And thank you all very much for joining us, for tuning in. Let's stay in touch, stay tuned, because more events are coming. Follow the European movement, and see you soon.